Okay, let's take a look at proportions now. As I mentioned earlier, proportions are when you set two ratios equal to each other. So you'll end up with, let's say, and I'll use just variables here to show you that it can be anything. We'll call this x1 and this y1. And it's going to be directly proportional in this case here to these. Now, there's two types of proportions. There's those that are directly proportional, and that's the way they set up here. And if you're solving something where it's obvious that they're directly proportional, and to give you an example of something directly proportional, let's say you're buying cookies in the mall, and the bigger the cookie, the more it costs. Both of them increase. That means they're directly proportional. If you were buying something and the bigger it was, the less it cost, then that would be inversely proportional. But this is directly proportional. When you have something that's directly proportional, you can cross multiply. The means equals the extremes. The inversely proportional, the formula is a little bit different. It's x1 times y1 equals x2 times y2. Now we're going to do a couple of problems where we see how these formulas are used and you can find the answers. And you have to be careful when you do these because you have to, by reading the problem, decide whether you're doing something that has an inverse relationship or a direct relationship. Okay, let's take a look at a typical problem you might see on the SAT. And the first thing you want to do when you read these is figure out whether it's directly proportional or inversely proportional. So let's read this together. If two packages contain a total of 12 donuts, how many donuts are in 5 packages? Well, it's pretty obvious. If you have more packages, you've got more donuts. And since both of those are increasing together, that is a directly proportional relationship. So let me write the formula out again. You don't have to do it on the test. You should be in your head by the time you get ready to take the test. Oh, this is y1, and this is x2 over y2. And so let's let x be the packages. So over here on this side, our x1 is going to be 2, put our equal sign, and on the other side, we've got for x2, we've got 5 packages. And we know that the denominator for this side over here, the y1, is going to be 12. It matches up with the 2 here. And the one we're trying to find out is x. So as I mentioned before, when you set up a directly proportional relationship, you just use cross multiplication. Means always equals the extremes. So we get 2x equals 5 times 12, which is 60. We divide each side by 2, and we get that x equals 30. That's your final answer. We go over and make sure it's here, and that's the correct answer. Okay, let's take a look at this now. This is another problem, and this is a number 15. So it's perceived as being one of the more difficult problems, and maybe we can tell why as we progress through it here. Like I said before, one of the first things you want to establish before you start writing down anything, is it inversely proportional or is it directly proportional? And I see right away before I even read this, the word inversely. So they made it kind of easy. But so there must be some other things here. So let's read the whole thing. The amount of time it takes to consume a buffalo carcass is inversely proportional to the number of vultures. If it takes 12 vultures 3 days to consume a buffalo, how many fewer hours will it take if there are 4 more vultures? I can see right away, and maybe you can see it too, there's several Joe Boggs traps set in this thing. That's probably why they gave it that difficulty level. One of the things you may not see right away is you got hours here and days there. The other thing is it says how many fewer. So it's one of those situations, you know, you're going to have to do not only some conversion from days to hours, you're also going to have to do somewhere some subtraction. So it's not just simply plugging into that inverse proportional formula, but we need to start there. Again, the inverse proportional formula looks like this. And that's multiplication on both sides. And we'll use as our x variable here, we'll use the number of vultures. So on this side over here, we've got 12 vultures multiplied times 3 days equals 4. Here's another Joe Boggs thing. 4 more vultures. Joe Boggs might write a 4 down here. It's actually 12 plus 4, which is 16 times y. We don't know what y is yet. Okay, I always like to put everything for the variable on this side, so I'm going to say 16y equals 36. And we divide each side by 16. We're going to get, that goes in there 2. You've got 4 left over. 4/16 is 1/4. So that would be 2 and 1/4. And remember, we're dealing with days here. We have to have apples with apples. That's how many days we got. We're trying to get to hours. And we also want to find the difference. So it took, you can see if that was 3 days, it took 3/4 of a day less in order with that many, those 4 extra vultures. So if it took 3/4 of a day, you know how many hours are in a day. So you take 3/4 of 24 hours, and you would get 3 times 6 equals 18. So that's the difference that you would have. Your answer would be C. Okay, here's another problem. And I like this problem because a lot of students might freak out when they say, gee, I know proportions, but I see nothing but letters here. What do I do in this case? Well, you use the variables, the letters, the same way you do the numbers, and you have the same strategy. First thing you have to determine is it an inverse proportion or is it a direct proportion? In this case, we've got the cost of pizzas, and the cost here is $Z to buy N pizzas. How much will it cost in dollars to buy B pizzas at the same rate? Okay, obviously, the number of pizzas you buy, the more you increase that number, the more you're going to increase the amount of money it costs. So this is a direct relationship. And so we would use the direct proportion formula, which is x1 over y1 equals x2 over y2. So in this case, we're using, though, the letters N, Z, B, and whatever we want the fourth letter to be. I'm just going to make the fourth thing a question mark. So let's put, we'll put the cost will be our Z, and it is, with Z, we've got N pizzas. And so if we put our cost here, we want to find out, our question is in dollars, it's going to be over here. This is our question mark. And the number of pizzas is B over here. Now, you handle this just like you did before, means equals extremes. I know that if I take Z times B, that's ZB, and I take it N times whatever this is, it is going to give me the answer. And so I'm just going to say that equals N question mark. And think of that question mark as some other variable, okay? Now, I need to get that question mark by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by N to get rid of it over there. And I'll get ZB divided by N is how we would find out this question. And we look over here and it's asking you, which one of these would solve our problem. And you see ZB over N, and A is our answer.